and welcome to our virtual community meeting. To choose whether you'd like to listen in English or Spanish, please click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and select your preferred language option. Hola y bienvenidos a nuestra reunión comunitaria virtual. Para elegir si desea escuchar en inglés o en español, haga clic en el botón de interpretación situado en la parte inferior de la pantalla y seleccione la opción de idioma que prefiera. If you'd like to see these materials more closely in English or Spanish as part of our on-demand virtual open house, please visit projectconnect.com/get-involved. We're also placing a link to the virtual open house into the chat box for this meeting. Si desea ver estos materiales más en detalle en inglés o en español en su propio horario, visite nuestra reunión digital en el sitio web projectconnect.com y haga clic en el botón Get Involved. También estamos colocando el enlace directamente en el chat de esta reunión. We currently have an American Sign Language interpreter pinned to the screen, and we'll have ASL interpretation available throughout this meeting. So if you need ASL interpretation, go ahead and pin that person to your screen now. We're going to keep everyone muted and the chat feature disabled until we get to our engagement activities and breakout groups. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Nierenberg, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement at the Austin Transit Partnership. 2021 was a year filled with great strides and accomplishments for Project Connect. We're excited to share our project updates with you today. When voters adopted Project Connect in November of 2020, the desire for progress was greater than just adding more buses and trains. The endorsement reflected the desire to build a region that embraces every community and provides connectivity for all residents to the beauty and opportunity of Austin. A more equitable, sustainable, and innovative region that lives up to its potential. These community values, which we've heard throughout our ongoing community engagement efforts, are reflected throughout each project in the program. Project Connect is a transit plan designed for Austin. It's not a single project or type of service. It's an interconnected system that will bring a number of firsts to Austin. Pardon me. Including a light rail system, a subway, expanded bus service, and an all-electric fleet. More on-demand circulator routes and new park and rides to provide more connections to the larger transit system. Project Connect has had a lot of recognition since the 2020 election. Last year, we had the honor of being awarded the Next Big Idea by Austin Urban Land Institute and the Rosa Parks Diversity Award by Women in Transportation Seminar, or WTS International. We've reached a number of milestones, including the adoption of a joint powers agreement, a blueprint for how Cap Metro, the City of Austin, and the new Austin Transit Partnership will work together to implement Project Connect. We also saw the establishment of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee and 3 technical advisory committees. We're continuing to work on many components of the Orange and Blue Line projects, including right-of-way and stakeholder outreach, draft 30% design, and technical analysis. We've been engaging our community through working group meetings and community design workshops all along both the Orange and Blue Line corridors. The new Metro Rapid projects saw some great progress in 2021, including the purchase of 197 new electric buses, the nation's largest electric vehicle procurement to date. New construction contracts were awarded for the Expo Line and the Pleasant Valley Line, and the Gold Line and the Menchaca and Oak Hill extensions are undergoing station design and planning. And in the past few months, we've had groundbreakings for the Expo Line and Pleasant Valley Line, along with 2 community update meetings. The Metro Rail Red Line has also been moving along quickly. In August, we completed the 30% design of the McCalla Station, a passenger rail station to serve the new Q2 Stadium and surrounding area. The Lake Line to Leander double tracking project reached 100% design completion in July, and track improvement construction started in October. Pickup, our neighborhood circulator service, is also quickly expanding. We're excited to share the launch of our most recent pickup zones, South Menchaca and North Oak Hill, which started service in July and August of 2021. Pickup is also now integrated into the CAT Metro app trip planning module for easier travel. Just last month, Pickup launched its public-facing dashboard, and that dashboard shares monthly ridership, on-time performance, and average response time by individual pickup zone. We have a number of milestones on the horizon for Project Connect, including finalizing 30% design plans for the orange and blue lines, the start of construction for Metro Rapids Menchaca and Gold lines, and the red line McCalla Station. We also continue to work with the FTA, or the Federal Transit Administration, to secure federal funding. We encourage you to visit projectconnect.com for more information and to stay involved. You can also sign up to join a working group by visiting the website. And with that, we'll move into the specific topics we're discussing today. So I'll pass it along to my colleague, Giannis Banks, who'll be giving a preview of the various topics we'll be discussing in the breakout rooms today. Take it away, Giannis.
Thanks, Jackie. Hello, my name is Giannis Banks, and I'm a Public Involvement Manager with Austin Transit Partnership. I'll be sharing with you a brief overview of the topics we'll be discussing.
Policy that I'm concerned about, and it's actually in both the alternatives, is...
I'm sorry. Okay. Let me start over. I'll be sharing with you a brief overview of the topics we'll be discussing in today's meeting. Now, many people in our community have been involved with Project Connect and the blue and orange lines over the last few years, but we want to provide a brief recap about how we got to where we are today. In 2019 and 2020, we conducted an alternative analysis for both the orange and blue line corridors. We used a screening process to define, evaluate, and refine both projects. This helped decision makers and the public evaluate costs and benefits for their projects, and ultimately led to what is called the locally preferred alternative. The locally preferred alternative is represented by a combination of mode, transit type, and alignment. The locally preferred alternative for both blue and orange lines were unanimously adopted by the CAT Metro Board of Directors and endorsed by the Austin City Council on June 10th, 2020. In November 2020, City of Austin voters approved an 8.75-cent tax rate increase to help fund the next phase of implementation for the Project Connect system plan, which enabled the blue and orange lines to move into the next phase of development. The Orange Line project is a light rail transit service that would operate an approximately 20-mile dedicated transitway from Tech Ridge Park and Ride on the northern end of the corridor through downtown Austin to just north of Slaughter Lane on the southern end of the corridor. The corridor is currently served by Capital Metro's Metro Rapid 801 North Lamar South Congress bus route. 21 stations are planned along the route. The Blue Line project is a light rail transit service that would operate in an 8.2-mile dedicated transitway from the Public Square in downtown Austin to the Austin Bergstrom International Airport. The transitway would operate in a tunnel through downtown under 4th and Trinity Streets. It would then cross Lady Bird Lake on the new bridge and travel along East Riverside Drive and State Highway 71 to the airport. 10 stations are planned along the route. The content we'll be covering in this meeting includes environmental resources and studies, system-wide connectivity, traffic and transportation, and anti-displacement strategies and investments. We encourage you to visit our virtual open house at your convenience to learn more and provide comments. For today's meeting, we'll discuss these topics in more detail. You'll be able to join a breakout room based on which topics you're most interested in. Now, before we go to breakouts, we'll do a brief preview of each topic. Excuse me. In the environmental review considerations topic area, we'll share more information about how we do the environmental review process. This process has been underway since January of 2021 for the Blue and Orange Line light rail projects. Through this process, we study the potential effects of these projects on our community's natural, human, and cultural environments. Based on comments and questions we've received from the community, we are sharing information about what we study and why, how we do our evaluation, and the information we'll be sharing as a part of the process. The purpose of the environmental review process is to be sure we have assured the potential impacts these light rail projects might have on the human and natural environment, identify ways to avoid or minimize those impacts, and share that information with stakeholders and the public. This process is part of the National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA, which requires federal agencies to consider the environmental impact of their actions, such as construction of projects like the Blue and Orange lines, and inform the public how environmental concerns were considered in the decision-making process. The topics that are looked at include not only things we usually think of as environmental topics, like air and water quality, and threatened and endangered species, but also things that related to the human and cultural environment, like parks and recreation areas, historic buildings, community resources like libraries and places of worship, as well as how the project may affect minority and low-income members. The list of all topic areas called environmental resources that are studied during the environmental review process are shown in the graphic on this slide. This graphic provides an overview of how we do the evaluation process. We start by setting a boundary around the light rail projects for each of the environmental resources we study. Now, within that boundary, we gather data on what's currently exists. This data gathering includes reviewing existing reports, such as the City of Austin Climate Equity Report, as well as doing work out in the field, such as site visits and surveys. Next, we evaluate what would have happened in the future if the project is built. This is called the build alternative, or if it isn't built, which is called the no build alternative. Makes sense, right? We compare the no build alternative to the build alternative to determine how the project changes future conditions and assess whether these changes are beneficial, negative, or neutral. For any negative impacts identified, we develop strategies to avoid, minimize, or mitigate the impact. Now, this graphic represents the entire life cycle of project development. The red box indicates where we are now, which is the NEPA or environmental review process. In January 2021, we started the scoping phase, which began the formal environmental evaluation process by providing information about the light rail projects and gathering public and agency input to help determine the scope of the issues to be addressed by the environmental study. Since that time, we've been studying various environmental aspects of the projects and working to compile what we find in a large document called the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or DEIS. In summer of 2022, we anticipate sharing the DEIS and accompanying executive summary with the public. This information will be available to the public for review with a set comment period of 45 days. In that time frame, a public hearing will be held to present the DEIS contents. Now, the public hearing will also include a formal public comment session, and every comment you receive during the 45-day period will be included in the final environmental impact statement, along with the formal responses to each comment. Throughout the environmental review process, community members have shared their input on a range of topics. In our virtual open house and breakout room discussion, we are highlighting the topic areas we've received the most community interest and questions about, which are shown on this graphic. Now, for each topic, we provide an overview of that topic and how it is evaluated. We also provide examples of potential mitigation measures should there be an impact. The terms impact and effect are used to describe positive, negative, or neutral project outcomes. The term mitigation refers to ways to reduce or eliminate negative impacts. You can find full details for each of the topics will be a part of the draft environmental statement impact. In the connectivity section, we will discuss improvements to both infrastructure and services that will allow Austinites to move to more easily use the light rail system once it's built. You may be asking, why is connectivity important? And we're glad you asked. The more options you have to get where you're going, the more accessible an area is, no matter how you get around, be it driving, walking and rolling, biking, or taking a local bus. Now, you can see this concept in the graphics on this slide. The interior color represents the possible distance traveled from the starting point at the center of the street network. The illustration on the left shows a connected street grid where there are more paths available to reach destinations near any given point. The illustration on the right displays the same size area with limited streets and connected pathways, making less of the area accessible. Now, improving connections for local buses and other connective services, people on bikes, people walking and rolling, and drivers will holistically benefit Project Connect system, and specifically the blue and orange line light rail lines. Stations within downtown Austin will be underground, but there will still be opportunities to improve the street level connectivity at the surface. This round of engagement focuses on connectivity at street level stations, but you can find out more about the opportunities for streetscape improvements as part of the downtown tunnel by reviewing the 4th Street Community Design Workshops materials on our engagement library. It is important to note that connectivity enhancements will be made as a result of Project Connect, and other city-led initiatives will be designed and adapted from plans, manuals, standards, and guidelines that have been adopted over the past decades. Some of these include the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, ASMP, which is currently undergoing updates. There's the City of Austin Transportation Criteria Manual, TCM, that was updated last year. The ATX Walk, Bike, Roll, which is the city's ongoing update to the sidewalk, bicycle, and urban trail master plans. There's the Urban Design Guidelines and Great Street Standards. The funds for this new connectivity infrastructure you will be seeing will come from a variety of funding resources. In some cases, this infrastructure will be built due to mitigation and construction activity directly related to the light rail projects. But in other places, it may be needed to be city funded, and those funds may not be guaranteed. The city is working in close coordination with ATP to identify funded connectivity improvements that can take advantage of construction impacts from the project. The exact location and type of these improvements is still to be determined. The connectivity section is divided into topics, depending on the different mode Austinites use to get around. These modes are taking a bus or other connective service, like ride hailing apps or scooters, biking, walking and rolling, and driving. The focus of this breakout session will be helping individuals understand how they might connect to and from stations and how different types of connectivity improvements may look and function. If you are more interested in the bigger picture impacts that the light rail projects will have on the transportation network, the traffic and transportation section may be a good fit for you. Next, we'll talk about traffic and transportation network. Planning for the changes the orange and blue line will bring to the city's transportation network requires us to consider the needs of all road users. Now, to do this, we evaluate the network as 4 interconnected components. Traffic covers vehicular travel. Parking looks at how many spaces there are and how many are used. Transit includes all form of public transportation. Active transportation evaluates sidewalks, shared use paths, and bike lanes. We review what is already known about each, look at what is already planned in the future, and estimate what would change with the introduction of light rail. One product of this process is the Transportation Technical Report, which will be published as part of each project's environmental impact statement later this year for public review and comment. In this breakout session, we will talk more about the transportation analysis and dive into how we measure traffic, transit, active transportation, and parking. We will talk about the benefits of introducing the light rail projects to the transportation network and discuss the role of mitigation in both the short-term and long-term futures of the transportation network in Austin. We can also address some common questions we've received, like looking at right in, right out intersections in more details, and how left turn and U-turning traffic can be accommodated. We can also dive a little deeper into transit signal prioritization and talk about what we know so far in terms of construction and its short-term impacts to traffic. We are hoping to discuss these and any related topics as they relate to transportation in Austin overall. If you have questions about these components, work together at a station or individual user level, then the connectivity section may be better suited for your interests. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Rachel Tepper at the City of Austin to introduce our last breakout group topic.
And I just want to take a moment to introduce Council Member Ann Kitchen has joined us. So I wanted to give the Council Member an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like to, Council Member.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Welcome.
I just want to say thank you to everyone thank you to our team for presenting this information and this opportunity for people to become involved and learn about the plans moving forward. And just want to thank everybody that's participating. It's so important that as we move forward with Project Connect, we are moving forward with with the community. I mean, this is something that is for everyone in the community, and something that we all want to have input into and own, essentially. So so appreciate y'all taking the time to participate.
Thank you, Council Member. We'll pass it back to Rachel now.
Hey there, Rachel. Could you unmute yourself?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Sound good now.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Councilmember Kitchen. My name is Rachel Tepper, and I'm a displacement prevention senior planner with the City of Austin. It's an honor to be here and share about the anti-displacement work that our team is doing at the City of Austin in the Housing and Planning Department in conjunction with Project Connect. The first thing I'd like to touch on is the contract we made with the voters on anti-displacement when Project Connect was passed in 2020. Project Connect is a transformational transportation project that will bring many benefits to Austin, but it can potentially burden those who lack economic mobility opportunities. Voters approved $300 million for anti-displacement investments, and that sent a clear message that our community values growth and equity. The goal of the anti-displacement investments is to create long-term impact with a focus on creating affordable housing units and asset building opportunities that enhance people's economic mobility and prevent displacement. These investments can protect households living in areas vulnerable to displacement with solutions that help them afford to remain in their homes and neighborhoods. This is an overview of the innovative ways that the City of Austin is addressing some of our most challenging issues: transportation, housing affordability, and equity. Next, I'd like to speak to the equity tool and report. The development of the equity tool and report was a collaborative, co-creative process with city departments, consultants, and community members. 30 community members were selected from over 100 applicants. Participants, referred to as racial equity catalysts, contributed a total of nearly 950 hours to the development of the tool. Catalysts reviewed displacement data, gathered lessons learned from other cities that have experienced transit-induced displacement. Key components of the Nothing About Us Without Us report and tool will guide the use of the anti-displacement funding, including priority places and priority purposes. Priority places include places in displacement risk areas within 1 mile of a Project Connect line or station. Priority purposes identified by the catalysts include affordable housing, protecting Black, Indigenous, people of color, or BIPOC owned businesses, minimizing immediate BIPOC resident displacement, access to high quality jobs, protecting cultural anchors, land banking, community power and capacity building, and strengthening tenants' rights. Initial investments by the city will focus on developing affordable housing, land banking, and reducing residential displacement of tenants and homeowners. So what is anti-displacement? What does that mean? In the simplest term, it means the work, the strategies, the policies, and the investments that are made to ensure that people do not have to move from their homes and their neighborhoods if they do not want to. While transit investments like Project Connect can bring great benefits to communities, like making it easier for people to get to jobs, medical appointments, and other places, history has shown that transit investments can also lead to displacement of existing residents due to increased property values, rising rents, and flat incomes. Next, we'll be talking about mapping displacement risk. Anti-displacement maps were created to guide how we invest, where we invest, and who we protect. The interactive dashboard shows areas within 1 mile of Project Connect stations and lines that are at risk of displacement. It includes characteristics of those areas and other data that will help focus where we make investments. The dashboard illustrates demographic characteristics of areas within 1 mile of Project Connect stations and lines in communities with vulnerable, active, and chronic displacement risk. To determine displacement risk, researchers at the University of Texas conducted a 3-part analysis: the presence of vulnerable populations, residential market appreciation, and demographic change. To determine vulnerable populations, the authors used indicators to identify residents who, according to academic research, are the least able to absorb high housing costs, which include communities of color, low-income households, heads of households without a bachelor's degree or higher, families with children in poverty, and renters. In 2019, housing and planning staff updated the data and maps and reorganized the neighborhood typologies as follows: vulnerable, active displacement, chronic displacement, and historical exclusion. Investments will be focused in the areas with the three different types of displacement risk: vulnerable, active displacement, and chronic displacement. I'd also like to touch on our investment strategy. The maps are one set of tools that have informed the city's investment strategy. In addition to the maps, the strategy has also been informed by previous research, data, existing policies, an examination of promising practices across the country, and the development of the equity tool. With limited resources, we must be smart and thoughtful about where to spend these dollars, and we must be impactful about how we employ the dollars. With the multi-pronged approach that informs the investment strategy considers who is most vulnerable, where displacement may occur near the Project Connect lines, what needs to happen to prevent displacement, when investment should be made, and how the voices of those most impacted are centered in the decision-making. With the investment strategy also comes with a timeline and budget. Anti-displacement investments will be made over the next 13 years with guidance from the community and the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee. Our discussion today will focus on the first allocation of the $65 million and the framework used to shape these initial investments. Austin has often been known as a city of innovation. Project Connect anti-displacement investments is a bold opportunity for city leaders to demonstrate our innovation by thinking and acting differently and centering vulnerable residents in our decision-making processes. We're pushing the boundaries beyond mere innovation and centering community innovation as the focal point for the city's anti-displacement investments. The equity tool has helped us establish community priorities. The equity tool has helped us establish community priorities for funding that will be available for community-initiated strategies. And critical to that success will be our community evaluation panel to identify successful grant recipients. These community-driven processes are not simply innovation, it's community innovation to propel the city of Austin towards transportation and housing solutions that are equitable for Austinites. And with that, I'd like to pass it back over to Giannis, who will help us get sorted into breakout groups.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I'm back, y'all. All right, so this marks the end of our presentation, and we hope you will move with us to the breakout sessions to provide feedback. That's what we know everybody is here for, right? To do that, please click the link provided in the chat, whether you're in Zoom or watching our live stream on Facebook. Once you click the link, you'll be briefly put into a breakout session waiting room, and with a minute or two, you'll be invited to join the breakout sessions that most interest you. Again, to do that, click on the link provided in the chat, Now, if you're Zoom or Facebook land,
Recording stopped.
it's all the same. Once you click the link, you'll be briefly put into the breakout session waiting room. And with a minute or two, you'll be invited to join the breakout session that most interests you. We'll have folks giving instructions in there as well. So we'll see you on the other side.